Hey, it's Mitch McDonald and Richard Gayton here. Here we are at Halo Lovin' Country. We're glad you joined us today. It's kind of a gloomy Sunday here. I don't know where you're at. How's the weather in Arkansas, Mitch?
It is our real feel today is 106 degrees. It is just violently
Oh
humid.
my God. So you got the
So
hot
it's
weather.
been
Yeah,
worse.
okay.
5, 6 years back we were hitting 115 and just wading through it. So this
Oh,
this could be
wow.
worse, and it's happening later in the year than normal. We should have been having this weather in May, June, and we're not hitting it till the very end of June, almost July. So we'll see what happens. Weather patterns are changing. That's all there is to it.
They are changing. Like today, this is normal June weather for California, but we've had a weirdest year so far. It rained and then it got hot and then it got cold, kept changing real rapidly. We're now in wildfire season, so there we go. But here in Loving Country, we're all about the risks, but also the joys of speaking out. Um, we started out with the risks of being LGBTQ in the military. Then it was the risks of LGBTQ people just speaking, period, because of the current climate from an authoritarian government. Now we have the risks of everyone speaking. How risky is it? And we watch an administration that is very good at flooding the zone with more and more I don't know what to even call it. I just call it crazy shit. It's like reflecting pools and ballrooms, and all that would be just, like plain crazy. And then what we've got is a war. We have a war that like 80% of the population here in America doesn't want, but nevertheless, we have an authoritarian president that has decided to start one, and now he can't stop it. And so, what do we do? How do we? Because my thing and my goal in life, I'm older now, but my goal in life is to try to stay at peace, maintain serenity in the midst of all the baloney that goes on in life, all the things that happen. Um, uh, older people like me have the developmental issue of aging. Younger people have the developmental issues of their own time, whether they're 3 years old and learning to walk, or they're 30 years old and trying to make a living in an economy that is really impossible for many of them. And this is the difficulty of staying at peace is everything and still speaking out. So kind of my reading today was I got these two books from my dear spiritual friend Steve on the Bhagavad Gita. This is a particular translation by Yogananda, and it's the story of Arjuna and Krishna. Arjuna the warrior, Krishna's the spiritual person. You probably heard that name before. It's very common in Indian religion and literature, but it's the story of the Gita. And this is dealing with evil in our world, dealing with those who would oppress others, those who would harm others, and in the name of God, even uh, conduct wars. And of course, these two guys were in a war. They were in a war against an evil ruler. And our Krishna advises Arjuna how to stay at peace in the midst of that. He didn't say, don't be a warrior. He didn't say, don't, he was, I guess, Arjuna was an archer. He didn't say, don't pull back on the bow. He just said, you need to do it with honor and you need to respect, the soul of people, and you need to respect life, very important. And who would have thunk it? We have Pope Leo speaking out now. Talk about religion can really inform us, and a lot of young people are going back to the Catholic Church. It's very interesting. So what Leo said was called the military threats against Iran truly unacceptable. And this was after the authoritarian in our lives here warned that a whole civilization will die. These are the words of the tyrant. These are the threatening annihilation to people if you don't do what I say. And this. How do we stay at peace in all of that? Now we have the peace pilgrims. These are the Buddhist monks that are walking across America. I think maybe they've arrived. They went from Texas to DC. You can catch them on Instagram. And this dog made it the whole way. He's part of the whole story. So you have a lot of individual people showing us how to be at peace in the midst of a lot of horror going on. And we can think back to Martin Luther King, he was a warrior for civil rights, for the rights of poor people, he had towards the end was against the Vietnam War. He was trying to show us how to be at peace, and he specifically spoke against violence. But I didn't hear him talk about inner peace so much, but he was talking about staying physically peaceful. And sometimes staying physically peaceful does not give us inner peace. It's an odd kind of quality. Like we can become passive and withdraw and, only tend to our own knitting. I heard that from Jerome Powell. I guess I heard him quoted about that. We can just stay focused on our own lives. And sometimes that's freaking enough for many of us. If we're having trouble eating, having trouble paying the rent, staying focused on your own life is a very peaceful thing to do, especially if you feel like you can't do anything about the economy or you can't do anything about the revival of racism, the revival of anti-Semitism, the revival of homophobia in the country, because those are things we've always had, but they were kind of at least appeared to be lessened. Now they're normalized again. Now they're back in the open. I don't know which is better. I think when they were kind of suppressed, what did it do? It tricked me into a sense of complacency and when Obama was elected, things are going to be okay. And of course, humans being the way they are, no, racism doesn't go away. Inequality doesn't go away unless we take action. And I would posit, and now, Mitch, I've yacked for a while. You want to hear what you're thinking about this. My point of view is we take action, but we do it with peace, and we try to keep our inner peace in the meantime, because we can make a lot better decisions about how to vote if we're at peace. We can really we can not get freaked out by all the talk about how horrible democratic socialists are, or how awful the gun control people are, or how awful the MAGA people are. If we're engaged in hate, we don't make as good. That's my bias. We don't make as good of decisions. We can look at people who are doing this and that and choose somebody who's doing what we would prefer they do. Somebody that maybe helps close inequality, makes it easier to buy a house, helps the rich pay their fair share, give LGBTQ people an equal break in the marketplace, in your family. Don't tolerate racism around you, in your community, in your stores, anywhere, in your schools, whatever. And how can we be not tolerate and still be peaceful? I don't know, but it works better for me. I make better decisions about that when I see it.
All right. So I've only read even portions of the Bhagavad Gita once. That was for a social studies class at the middle school. Art of War came up through part of that. We talked about Walt Whitman, Abraham Lincoln's writings, Martin Luther King Jr. And now that I'm running that list out loud, I don't know that we really looked at any conservative thinkers.
Mm-hmm.
That may be something we have to remedy this year. Okay, but in terms of the Bhagavad Gita, again, I didn't read it beginning to end, and in class we only just sort of touched on portions of it. My memory of it was really that it was a discussion of, more than anything, keeping your head down and doing what you're supposed to do. that it's not
Duty.
so much about what is right and what is wrong, but what is your individual role, what is your part to play, which now that I've said that part out loud strikes me as incredibly conservative. Um,
Hmm.
because it's about finding peace in knowing that the larger decision was never yours. As a soldier, it was not your job to decide that the policy was right or wrong. It was only to implement it because that was your duty as a soldier. You were sent to war because someone on the other side of the line failed to do what was necessary, and your people said, we have to strike them. It doesn't matter
Mhm.
if you personally feel that the policy was erroneous or ill-considered or immoral. It's just doing what you're supposed to do. And in that front,
That's very conservative. Yeah.
yeah, it is. And unfortunately, following orders is not a defense against doing immoral things. It can be very calming, easy to accept that you only did what you thought you had to do. Actually, not even what you thought you had to do. I only did what I was told to do. Did I deeply consider it? No. Should I have been given an illegal order? No, but I did comply, and that is its own sort of problem. But there is something to be said for uh, feeling that your faith and the people above and around you are not ever going to ask you to do anything wrong. And that even if you don't understand it in the moment, the thing they're asking you to do is both right and necessary.
That makes sense.
And in terms of, calmness within yourself, knowing that you are only living up to your own standards and expectations. I mean, everybody has their own moral compass, and it can be easy to feel that when you are doing the thing that you feel is right, you can't be doing anything else. It's when you start questioning where you are and why you're doing what you're doing that things tend to go astray. And that's a bad place to be, having to question. But here on this podcast, we ask people to question their moral stances all the time. Um, uh,
It's the it's the
and not just
requirement of a democracy to question, though. It's a
it is
requirement
it is a
actually of an American soldier to question illegal order, right?
Well, it is your place to know enough about what is right and wrong to be
Mm.
able to say you have just given me an illegal order. It's like the Supreme Court not too many years ago held that a police officer doesn't have to know what the law is. He only has to feel that he is reasonably acting in accordance with the law. Not something you and I get to do. We can just say ignorance of the law for us is not an excuse, but it is apparently an excuse for a police officer. A soldier also doesn't get that. A soldier can't say, I had every reason to believe that the order I was given was acceptable and I complied. And then when it turns out, oh no, that was a war crime. Well, you've just committed a war crime. And feeling that the order was legal does not save you. We ask people here to look at their not just and not just look, we're not even just asking them to look at their conservative stances and question whether or not they're being in the end immoral. That same thing does sort of fall in for some of our more liberal progressive positions. We have liberal within the LGBTQ community, the idea that trans people are not necessarily part of the movement for liberation and human rights. They're separate. They're something else. Their stuff needs to
Yeah.
be handled by somebody else. They're not fighting the same battle we're fighting. It took a while for, in the women's movement, for the white women who were effectively piggybacking off the rights that had been given to black men to recognize that black women were in the same fight with them. So yeah, even progressive movements run into a wall where they eventually have to ask themselves, are the goals we are working toward the right goals? Are we being asked to do something that is moral and appropriate and good, or are we wearing blinders? Are we being selfish?
Yeah.
So yeah, you occasionally do have to reconsider the movement you're in and the reasons that you're in it. It is just easy to justify your own feelings and just plow ahead.
So how do we
Uh,
know what is just, what is right in the moment, particularly in this political context we're in? What what is our what is the what do you call it? The lodestar? What is the what do we look towards
the North Star, the
for
guiding light.
for correct action, for proper inner peace in all of this? We don't want to be at peace because I suspect some of those folks as they were shoveling the Jews into the ovens were at peace, because they thought they were doing the right thing. Because we can be totally happy with what we're doing and be completely wrong.
Well, I think for me, the thing you try to think of is the thing I try to think of when I do take the time to think about it is, am I trying to deny someone else something that I have? Would this same rule be applied to me if I were in the same or a similar situation?
We're
And
talking
then when
about
I look at
selfishness.
it on,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Selfishness. Yes. Uh, um, that we are more important than someone else.
Yes, yes. And then when I look at policy, when I look at where we are as a city, as a state, as a country, I'm more than happy to fall back on the Constitution. There are flaws there, but there are not as many as there are not as many as there would be without it. Unfortunately, we are dealing with a Supreme Court that does not see fit to live in the land of either precedent or intent. They are simply they have become a political arm of the White House, the Justice Department, the Supreme Court. Many of our state courts are doing everything in their power to change laws to their own more conservative, self-serving versions. And I feel like that's obvious. I feel like we can all see that. And I feel like even they can see it and they understand exactly what they're doing. They're just happy with the outcome. So it's not as
Yeah,
big a
they don't
deal to,
care.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, they don't mind.
They
They
are
don't
in
mind
fact
being
asking,
because they're doing what's right in their minds. Justice
yes, they're
Thomas
doing
and
what's right.
Alito and Gorsuch are doing what they think is right
Right. But they're doing what they feel is right in
at the expense of
in
others.
at the expense of others and in direct contradiction to what is considered to be settled law, and in many cases in ways that say that ignore the Constitution.
Which is sort of
So,
not conservative, is it? I mean, it's not if conservation if being a conservative is maintaining hallowed traditions, there's nothing conservative about them. It's like,
well,
but then we have
they
to
are the
look up.
same.
Go ahead.
They're being activist judges in the same way that they have accused. 20 years ago, that was the battle cry of the against the Supreme Court, that there were too many liberal progressive judges and that they were activists on the law. They were not following the law. They were trying to change the content of the law, and
Yes,
they're doing it now, not just on issues that they had then, but on just the entire range of uh, conservative positions, social, governmental, corporate, just everything that they don't like is being set fire to. So as far as taking peace with it, okay, so I think we fall into the realm of where does self-control lie? Um,
Mhm.
we there are always going to be issues that do not go our way. Doesn't matter, again, corporate, social, governmental. There are always going to be things that are decided in a fashion that we're not in agreement with. Just because they go against you does not mean you're supposed to take up arms. There is a place after which that becomes a consideration, and it's hard to know when you've gotten there. By my standard, we are currently well past that point. If this were 100 point, if the current government were 100 point scale, I'd say we are 75 to 80 points toward the place where we were already supposed to act, and we should have acted somewhere back around 40 or 50 points. We are well past taking action against this government. But there is absolutely nothing that stops us from simply remaining calm, taking a deep breath, and engaging the system as it exists, to push laws, to push government in the direction that we feel it needs to go. When the current administration goes away, if we see the influx of progressives and liberals taking over government that I expect, we will be having these exact same battles again, except from the other side. We're going to be
Mhm.
flipping things back. We're going to be fighting to get better guardrails. We're going to be fighting to get clearer guidance on the law, and it will not be in favor of the very conservative portion of our country that is limiting other people's growth right now, taking away other people's rights right now.
Because that would be the complaint of the think it's more reactionary kinds of stuff than really conservative. MAGA being a kind of a that's their complaint about us, about liberal or progressive folks, about people that use the term homophobia, racism, inequality, equity, and what is it? Uh, Diversity, equity, and inclusion. All these words that they hate, they consider that an oppression of them, oppression of their freedom of speech. Um,
Yes.
and so when they come in back into the power, back into power, I don't want them to have license to take up arms against the government. And they gave license to the January 6th people to do that by pardoning them and kneecapping the reasonable response, which was to try them in a court and find them guilty or innocent. Said we would do anyone. They undermined that. And now the question is, and the temptation will be it's just that, and sometimes it's what I want to do, but it's not peaceful for me to change the system to persecute them. I think that was their complaint, that Trump was got convicted of those 30 felonies for something that was kind of esoteric. It wasn't for his
Yes,
sexual
rape
abuse.
is very
It
esoteric.
was.
It's stealing government documents and leaving them unsecured is very esoteric.
You're breaking up again. Steve. He got convicted for a business crime for is a felony in New York, but he never got convicted for taking those documents. He should have been, but he was never tried for it. When he took the federal documents home,
Right,
he
right.
didn't
Well,
get
and that is
he didn't get
because the once he got back into office, he had the DOJ simply step away from that entire investigation. When it comes down to it, I guess it is easy to be at peace with a position that you just personally accept. You assume an inability to fail, to be wrong. You believe that the position you are in is justifiable and you act on it. It's a dangerous place to be, but it makes it easy to be at peace with questionable decisions. And I'd be lying if I said, the conservative mindset is the only place where that exists. We are quite comfortable with the belief systems that we have, that
absolutely.
LGBTQ
Yeah.
plus people are no different than anybody else and deserve the same rights, that racial issues as we know them today are manufactured and are a means of controlling and manipulating people, that all human beings deserve the same rights. The rights as they alter between nations have nothing to do with your rights as a human being. We currently have these issues with Trump where he is violating basic human
Mm.
rights situations and trying to claim that it's acceptable because he has manufactured a conflict around them. The boat strikes were blatantly inhumane and in violation of multiple human rights standards. You have survivors in the water, you get them out of the water, you fish them out, you arrest them if that's what that comes down to. You hand them over to the military police. You hand them over to their government civilly. You hand them over to our government. If someone is committing a crime, there is a role for civil and civilian government. But when you're manufacturing a war, attacking people in a military context and then denying them even military rights because you just feel justified in doing it, despite the fact that there is an entire volume of law that makes it obvious that the thing you're doing is illegal and wrong. But if you believe it, if you believe it's all about the warfighter ethos and we don't cut anybody slack, and if they're against us, they're dead, those attitudes,
Yeah,
uh,
it's
it's a
that
very
it's
fascist place to live,
so
very
it's because
very
certainty,
dictatorial place to live.
is well, certainty can be very peaceful.
Yes.
Yeah, like you said, and it's that when you're certainty about something. Okay, so I go to a No Kings rally.
Mhm.
Very easy for me to take that action, to walk up and down, people who agree with me, most of the people that go by are honking their horns in agreement and waving, and everybody's happy. And all I'm doing is out there running my mouth or holding a sign. And then that's peaceful. But now, if Trump comes into my community with ICE and begins arresting my neighbors, what is the peaceful action for me at that point? It becomes a much more difficult aspect of what is right and wrong and how much action I should take. It becomes much more urgent. And it strikes me I should be warning my neighbors and I don't know what I would do. I'm not sure if I'm going to me being old and with not the best balance, am I going to go up and go nose to nose with an ICE agent? I don't know, probably not. But I don't know what I would do because that's my neighborhood. You watch the people of Minneapolis, what did they do? Some of them went nose to nose with ICE agents. Some of them fought with ICE agents. Many of them sang a song as they walked through the neighborhood to calling out to their neighbors, or they blew whistles, letting their neighbors know what to do. They took action, things that we normally wouldn't do in everyday life. That was what was peaceful for them. That gave them peace. I mean, and some people may be at peace doing nothing and just assuming that democracy will work, that eventually the checks and balances will stop Trump. I'm hoping for that. I ain't counting on it, but I'm hoping on it, hoping that's true. That's my peaceful thing because I don't want to have to do more. I don't want to have to do something beyond voting, beyond marching, beyond yakking. Because as soon as I take up arms, it's a great justification for the other side to do the same thing. It just becomes very easy for everyone to start fighting because that really is that's normal human behavior is to have a tribe. It's local. You hang out with it. You raid your neighbors. If they really piss you off, you burn down their village and kill everybody. Take the women. That's what you do. That's normal human behavior. That's still going on in a big part of the world too.
Yeah,
So,
you're right.
and don't think we can't go back to that. We spent 700,000 lives doing that during the war, so we can go back to that if we choose to not honor the system we got. And is that peaceful? Is it peaceful to watch Americans kill each other in the hundreds of thousands over a 4-year period and burn their cities? Their children get caught in the middle. They starve. They die. All kinds of stuff happens. All the horrors of war, and that's the immediate consequence of not responding peacefully to people.
It's also the consequence of responding peacefully. If
Hmm.
you like, in the example that you just gave, the federal government has already taken up arms against the people of the United States.
Yes.
And not just in the context of the fortunately small number of people who have been killed while either protesting or resisting, or while not resisting, while actually complying with instructions and still lost their lives. We have a very real issue of immigrants being abused inside these centers that the Trump administration has established. We have every reason to believe that women across a range of ages, to include underage girls, are being raped, impregnated, and held in locations for that specific purpose, even if it's just to hide that those things have happened, that it's going on there. We've had to shut down at least one detention center that was in the Alligator Alcatraz that was stated its intention was to make their time there as miserable as possible. We have people saying that they're being fed moldy, maggoty food, unclean water. They don't have proper sleeping arrangements,
And none of that is peaceful.
and none of
Yeah.
that is peaceful. That is
None of
all
it's
political
lawful.
violence.
Yeah. It's
And
wrong.
just last week, well, rather, just in the week that we're coming out of, they have once again found a way to begin deportation against people that have been here for a decade, because we said we understand that the situation that you are in is politically violent from your country, and we're going to protect you as best we can. But this administration has decided that those are shithole countries, and why do we bother with them? We need more white people to be moved here from nice countries.
Like South
You know,
Africa, that,
yeah,
that,
like South
yeah,
Africa, and even
that
those
example
people realize.
of racial harmony and equity. Yes.
Right, right. But even those people from South Africa eventually realized that it's a scam, that they were being mistreated, that they weren't being given the rights and privileges they firmly felt they would see in the United States. Oh, you're going to give us homes and you're going to give us jobs, and they got treated the way everybody comes here and gets treated, and they didn't like it very much. Because they were
Really?
lied to about what was going to be waiting on them. They thought they were going to get special treatment, and for whatever reason, they weren't. And that's an end result of trusting Trump in any circumstance. He will blow smoke up your ass. The people in his administration will lie to you, tell you anything you need to hear to get you to support the action, to agree with the action, to work with the action. And then the second they have it in place, they go in whatever direction they want and ignore you. And they ignore your complaints and they ignore your pain. They do that to the progressive and liberal side of the country, and they do that to the conservative side of the country that they are garnering their support from, which is even more confusing. And these people believe firmly that what is being done is the right thing, and they get somewhat confused when the right thing they want done to other people is visited upon them, but not so confused that they stop supporting it.
Odd, isn't it? Yeah. It's odd why people would keep supporting it. But then how many people in America are supporting Trump? Well, 35%, 36% of the electorate, which is a relatively small percentage of America, they support him, I guess.
Well, and I'd
Um,
say I'd say the hardcore portion of it, the true MAGA people are probably closer to 10%. The diehards who, no matter what he does, they will get down on their knees and thank him for doing it, no matter how
right.
much their own families suffer. Or rather, actually, I guess it's more of a until they're no matter how much their own communities suffer, when it hits them personally, it turns into an issue. Caitlyn Jenner is an excellent example of that. I giggle every time I see her going off about her problems in recent years that are all directly traceable to decisions made under the Trump Supreme Court. She's a Trump voter. She's a MAGA. She always has been. The sad argument that she is a trans woman who has not realized that removes her from the patriarchy at a control level, and she just hasn't realized it yet. I feel like that is a very sad truth. She still thinks like the man she once was. She doesn't realize what she has given away.
And maybe that's the only way that people learn is by having the practical consequence. And it takes a while. It takes a while for the practical consequences of political decisions, the practical consequences of electing a Trump, the practical consequences of having defunding education or disenfranchising LGBTQ people and some, we haven't seen the consequences yet of eliminating all these black districts where they've had black district representatives. We're soon going to see it, but I mean, it's like it actually has to happen to you. It's abstract as long as it's not happening to you. So, for instance, and here in California, nothing is really happening because we're a little bit insulated. Nothing's happening against gay people. I'm favored and because I have enough money. I'm not trying to buy a house. I'm not young. That's not impacting me. But I can see it's impacting my grandchildren. And I see the racism that impacts my grandson sometimes. They don't talk about it. I think they're pretty immune to it. I don't know. I can't speak for them. But I do wonder about that because white people are still favored in our country. And in California, boy, there can be a lot of talk about how awful it is, and there's a lot of happiness about people living in California. It's hard to find people complaining about it. I guess they leave if they don't like it. I don't know, and I guess some
Well,
people, and
I
that's what they
think that
should be
our
able to do. You know,
right, no, and everyone should be able to leave. And thankfully we haven't gotten to the part yet where they're closing the borders and locking us inside as well as denying anyone else entry. But, I think our grandchildren are the difference between their parents and us and them is that they've been living through this lack of access to rights their entire lives. They've the privileges and the expectations and the standards have been getting chipped away as long as they've been alive. They're used to losing what they have. And our children have been watching the economy decline, losing access to buying vehicles, losing access to buying homes, losing access to good paying jobs and insurance. They watched us fight the bare bones present, or actually even our parents. We watched our parents get those things. Well, actually,
yes,
okay, there's enough of a gap between us. You watched your parents get those things. You lived in the presence of them, and you have watched them ebb away. I have been watching them ebb away. I have seen my children struggling to find a way to hold on to them. And I know they don't exist for my grandchildren. And it's the same way in school. The kids in my school, one of the things that we do is every year they create a social contract, and they have to do it in every single class. And basically they sit down with the teacher, they sit down with the other students, and they say, how do you want to be treated in here? And they run through the list of, no disrespect, be kind to others. They run through all these things they want, not things they don't want, things they want to see. And I should note that over the years before I got in school, rather before I started working in the schools, I often heard young people talking about, what's this social contract? I never signed it. I never agreed to any of this. But of course, they were raised under the privileges that social contract put in place. They were raised with the rights that social contract put in place, and they don't know it because we by default maintained them. So they don't recognize that the clean water they have, the clean air that they have, the hospital care, the education that they are receiving. They don't recognize that those things are all part of the social contract. They only get riled up when you tell them they can't do something. So we have them in the classrooms coming up with these social contracts and saying, okay, these are all the things you said that you wanted. This is all the ways you say you want to be treated and that you're willing to treat others. You have them sign it. You have them sign it on the wall, and you can always look to it. We said that we are going to be respectful. We said that we will listen intently, and it's, for me, the frustration of it is that every single year they look remarkably the same. Sixth graders, seventh graders, eighth graders, ninth graders, they all have the same understanding and expectations of human rights. They all understand what respect means. And from year to year, from class to class in the same year, you will see the same things written by every class on every one of those papers, signed by everyone. Only
Mitch.
once have I had to.
Well, are they slipping away at all? Do they sense that these rights and the tenets of the social contract are slipping away? Do they sense
Oh,
that?
yes, yes.
Where did they go? They're wondering and missing it, and
Yes, they are asking to be treated like human beings, because there are a lot of basic rights that we do not extend to children. And with reason, but it doesn't feel good to know you don't have control of your own life and your own world. No one wants that. And often all they are asking for is sort of a step up. I understand. They're not even saying I understand that I'm a child and I don't have the same privileges as everyone else. They're saying I want to be treated the way you expect me to treat you. It's like the idea that we expect them to say yes, ma'am, and yes, sir, and we expect them to call us by a title, but they're just children. We don't do that to them. They're just, you're your first name. I don't owe you any honorific. I don't owe you. You have to follow my instructions. I have no reason to listen to any instruction you may give, even when it's directly about you as a person. In the state of Arkansas, we now have laws that say, if a child says, I want to be called XYZ name, well, I have to call you by one of the names written here on your enrollment because that's part of your birth certificate. And that's the only thing I can call you. You can tell me you want to be him, her, zim, zer, but Zimzer is out. They is largely out because too many teachers are idiots and do not understand that they is about as generic a context for someone as you can offer. If you feel feminine enough that you want to be female enough that you want to be referred to as her, but the information I have on you says you're a him, then I can only refer to you as him. That is a direct disrespect of the individual. As an adult, you wouldn't accept it, but in the state of Arkansas, you have no choice because they've decided it applies to adults too. But these kids are only asking for the same thing that we once upon a time expected to be handed out to any adult. They want in the environment that they spend, a full third of their day in, that they be treated decently. And, as I've only ever had one student really question the nature of those posts. And that was really just, he signed it, but it was, it was basically him saying everybody else has signed it. And I think it's shit, but if I don't sign it, what am I going to do? How am I going to be treated? Do I
Mhm.
get to just not sign it? I told him, yeah, you do not have to sign it, but I would like you to explain to me why you don't think these rules are reasonable, why these standards are so uncomfortable. Well, I shouldn't have to respect everybody. I shouldn't have to listen to anybody. Well, okay, but you're right. You shouldn't. People are going to come at you with ideas that are blatantly disrespectful and don't make sense, but they're going to feel the same way about you. And by saying respect, we're saying, let's talk about it. You don't have to agree. We have to just understand that people are different and you have to respect that there is a difference. And, to a degree, he was being argumentative. Um, but to
But
agree,
he
he
has a
absolutely
right to be argumentative, doesn't he?
he has a right to be argumentative. I don't,
Yeah.
I only mind argumentative when it becomes repetitive. You're saying the same thing over and over. We're not moving forward. So we're going to have to agree to disagree until we can come to a better argument.
Or he's argumentative and will not go to class. It's like there's one thing to express your opinion. There's another thing of what you do. Like to me, it was always okay for the MAGA folks to talk. Well, sometimes not okay, but so what? Talk, talk. Now they take action. And they dismantle AID. They disregard the Constitution. It just goes on and on. So it's
Right.
like, so how do we take action that
Well, and
is
again, it's not that
the
they're
boy's
taking
gotta go to
action.
class. He can disagree, but he still has to go to class.
Right. Well, and it's not that, and the problem isn't people taking action for the things they believe in. It's taking action that you would not allow to be taken against you.
Mm.
If you say, I do not have to go to class, but screw all you guys, you got to go. Why are you different? Why are you separate? Don't have to respect that little boy over there in the dress. Well, he has to respect you. Why are you special? Why are you? Oh, because I'm normal. You're normal? Really? You think it's normal to just disrespect people because they don't look like you, they don't sound like you, they don't speak the same language as you? That's okay? Well, because you recognize where they're from, you are odd. And right now, they accept your presence, they accept your opinions, but you're being ugly toward them and you're making them very unhappy that they're not being ugly back. And eventually that's a slippery slope. And you're going to go sliding down it one day and you're not going to be happy with what happens at the bottom. So and then that's an argument that needs to be had with every adult in this country, that you give as good as you get. You look out for others so that they will look out for you. We don't have to love each other. We don't even have to like each other, but we have to understand that we are all the same and equal under the Constitution, under the law. I'm trying to think of what religion really says we're not even equal in the eyes of their God. And I guess there are certainly religions that do that, but that's again religions I discount. Although let's be fair, I discount all religions, so never.
My hope is that soon that this phase of authoritarianism will pass in our country, but I don't think it will pass without a lot of action on all of our part, from voting to speaking out, taking to the streets, to changing leaders. It's got to happen. And
Yeah.
that is my hope. And that is my prayer. Speaking of religion, that's my prayer that that will happen. And that is the end of our time. We have arrived. Um, Halo 11 Country, watch the movie, read the book, join us again in 2 weeks on a Sunday or whenever you see us. And we thank you for watching us and listening. Say goodbye, Mitch.
Bye, Mitch.
Goodbye, Richard.